This is the new Nubia Z70 Ultra, and I always wonder what would be the perfect place to take a phone like this. And you know what? I think I found one. Let me show you.
Today's trip for the Nubia Z70 Ultra has put me back to Belgium once again, with a one-way trip being over 3 hours. This time it's Villers Abbey, to a building that was made all the way back in 1146. But of course now lies in ruins. But of course in its ruins there's beauty to it. So let's try to capture the perfect shot on the Nubia Z70 Ultra here in Villers Abbey.
Talking about photography, I get a lot of questions about how I approach my photography, and honestly that's not the easiest question to answer. But today I have some news for you, because today's sponsor is Skillshare.
Now for Skillshare you have a lot of different courses you can follow, like photography, where I can give you tips. Explaining in a well-balanced way has never been my strong suit, that's why I'm not a teacher. Courses on Skillshare from, for instance, Dale here, will help you out understanding the approach needed for mobile photography, but naturally you can also carry that over to your proper camera photography. And that all in a course that gives you an easy to digest tips on how to approach it. But naturally you can follow some other courses as well, like for instance videography, business, marketing, music or cooking.
What are you looking at me for? I can make a meat spaghetti.
Yeah, but that's the only thing you can make well. So this is where Skillshare comes in.
So for those who want to become better at photography, videography or anything you can think of, click the link in the description for Skillshare. Again, 1 month free for those first 500 people. Anyway, thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's continue capturing in this beautiful place and see what the Nubia Z70 Ultra is capable of when it comes to the camera. Now what makes this Nubia Z70 Ultra so interesting is the focal length of the main camera. This is a 35mm equivalent, where normally a phone comes with 23 or 24. The difference that it makes is that it compresses the shot a lot more. Imagine a 24 or 23mm equivalent. If you take a shot, it kind of looks like this. It looks stretched out. But when you take a 35mm equivalent, things get closer to it. And it creates a whole different compression of the shot itself. And that makes a device like this very interesting to test out, especially with the main camera, that I will use a lot more because of that. Now what also makes this device very interesting is that it now comes with a variable aperture, as you can see right here. That helps a lot with creating less light coming into the sensor, especially during daytime, but of course also in low light, and it can make images quite a bit sharper. Depending on the situation, you can play around with it. It goes from 1.59 all the way up to 4. Now of course, when it comes to the Nubia Z70 Ultra, there are some choices that I'm not a really big fan of. I really loved the 18mm equivalent ultra wide with a large 1/1.55 inch sensor size. But now we have a 1/1.288 inch sensor size, if I'm correct. And it's 13mm equivalent, so you're losing out a little bit on that. Sure, I don't use ultra wide that much, but I really liked having that larger sensor and an 18mm equivalent ultra wide instead of this 13mm that for some reason starts at 18mm by default. Now what makes this compressed look so much nicer is that shots like this just come out so much cleaner, and it adds a lot of nice bokeh and everything is compressed a little bit more. With an ultra wide, for example, if I go ultra wide and just use a 24mm equivalent, you can see how much different that makes. And for those who love photography, this is one of those main sensors that I use a lot more because of that 35mm equivalent. It just adds so much to the shot itself. The compression just makes it so much better compared to what you get on a 24mm equivalent. This is going to be a beautiful contrast. You can see right here Of course I have my ISO a little bit lower so it doesn't overexpose, but let me just up it a little bit. You can see right there the green plant itself, and of course you have that really nice contrast with the concrete around it and everything that you see right here. So let's take a shot of that and see what we get out of that one.
Now of course today's challenge is really focusing on capturing the perfect shot, but we know how photography goes. You never know the situation you end up with, even if you plan ahead a lot. And that's a big part of the fun for photography for me. It's the hunt to get the best shot in the situation you have to deal with. That's why I'm never a fan of using AI to remove people or subjects. It removes the part of the challenge for me. It's not reality. Sure, editing is fine, but naturally that will make this challenge quite a bit harder.
Now we can have a whole conversation about the perfect shot, but let's be fair, a lot of it also depends on the situation you're in. For instance, if we look at the windows right behind me, right there, what would be really nice if the sun comes through it. My camera wants to focus it. The sun rays come through it, that would be perfect. But because nature, I don't have that, so I have to deal with the cards that I've given. Sure, I can use AI, but that doesn't make it real. I do hope that you're enjoying the hunt for the perfect shot so far. It will require some walking, and hopefully the sun will add some effect when it's slower, so I can get that better shot. Hopefully, maybe, possibly. But I doubt it. It's very cloudy today, so we'll see. If there isn't too much backlight, by the way, front-facing camera. I mean, it's nothing special, but it's hidden, and I don't use it that much, so I'm okay with this.
Now there are some things that I've noticed naturally while shooting with this Nubia Z70 Ultra. The biggest thing that stands out for me and that makes the challenge a lot harder is the weaker ultra-wide. Dynamic range can be a struggle in these situations, and while I'm aware that some of these situations are hard with the lights coming through the ruins itself, not making it an easy job at all, it can really struggle. It also lacks detail compared to the main sensor naturally. Again, I'm not a user that will use that ultra-wide a lot, but I do wonder why they made this trade-off. Could it be cost? Because of course getting that Snapdragon Elite inside will cost a good chunk of that budget. But let's be fair, the phone costs just 749 euros, and currently you even have 30 euros off, where you can get this phone for 719 euros for the base version that will still come with 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of memory, and for that you get a lot of experience. Sure, the ultra-wide won't compete with the top dogs, but the price isn't anywhere near them as well, and if you don't use it a lot or ever, then the question becomes for you if you find that trade-off okay. And there are features that, for instance, a lot of phones don't have. And that is
that we actually have a proper shutter button, a two-stage one, which is just so much better than having what Apple had, whatever that was. It just wasn't any good. But it just adds that little bit extra to the shot itself, especially the two-stage of it. I just like shooting with it. It's just much nicer. Sure, I don't always use it. When I'm shooting shots like this, then I'm not using it. But if I shoot it like this, then it's handy because your finger is off the screen itself, and it just allows you a little bit more vision on what you are shooting. It's a small thing, but it matters. And when it comes to the Nubia Z70 Ultra, it is odd. When it comes to the telephoto, it is technically a 70mm equivalent and not an 85mm equivalent that it starts at. I feel like 85 would have been better. Also, when taking pictures with the Nubia, just like the previous generation, just turn down the brightness a little bit if you are using photo mode. If you're using pro mode, of course, then the game changes quite a lot in how you approach it. And of course you can shoot RAW for those who want to know. Now, one thing that I will say when it comes to the Nubia Z70 Ultra is that the sharpening is a little bit too much for me. It's easy to add sharpening, it's hard to remove it. So having less of that would be nice. I know that a lot of people like that these days, but I'm not a fan of it. It's not detail. It just looks odd. So a little bit less of that would definitely be a benefit for a phone like this, especially for the main sensor that I really like. It's just that when it comes to that sharpening, it's just a tad too much in pro mode as well, but especially in auto mode. Now, do I think I captured perfect shots with the Nubia Z70 Ultra? Today I would say no, simply because of course the situation that I'm dealing with is I don't have any sun coming through, which would be really good at a rundown castle like this, because it just has light coming through the windows and it just adds that lot more character to the shot itself. It adds that feeling of a rundown castle naturally, because it's coming through those windows that are broken, that are ruins like this. And I think there, of course, that's something that I don't have control over, and neither does Nubia. And sure, you can use AI to get that generated look and whatnot, but I don't want that. I want a proper shot. I don't want any interference with AI and so on, because I don't feel like that belongs to photography at all. I don't like removing people. I don't like having things done with AI. I want it to be the experience, how you get it with the phone and how it was in front of you, instead of creating a situation that doesn't exist. Anyway, I think that the Nubia Z70 Ultra is a really interesting phone, especially when you use the main sensor itself. There, it is one of those phones that I would love to use, and I do. This is going to become my main phone for a little while, because I think that 35mm equivalent lens is really excellent for me because of the focal length, because of the compression that it creates for the shot itself. This is a device that I think photographers will love. Sure, it has its limitations, and I don't think it's going to be as good as something like the Vivo X200 Ultra that is coming up with a same 35mm equivalent. At least that is what it's rumored. But with that being said, you're paying quite a lot less for a phone like this that creates some really good shots, has a really good display, and of course doesn't have any cutout because it has an under the display camera. That being said, it really depends on what you are looking for when it comes to a phone like this, because it does have faults as well. I don't necessarily like 30mm equivalent ultra wide. Sure, in some situations it's helpful, also in these situations, but I think when it comes to the trade-off of what you get on the Z60 Ultra and the leading version, I feel like there I'd rather have that sensor than the one that we have in this Z70 Ultra. That being said, it's probably because the Snapdragon 8 Elite costs a lot of money. And also I understand that, for instance, no gallery app is one of those features that I really want to have as well, and others probably want as well, because you have Google Photos, and I'm not a fan of Google Photos at all. Either way, what did you think about the Nubia Z70 Ultra? And of course, what did you think about the video? Sure, I didn't manage to capture that perfect shot that I was looking for, but situations like these you don't have control over, and I think that's part of the excitement of photography. Just a shame that it took me 3 hours to get here, and then it will need 3 hours to get back. Hopefully no traffic jams. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and of course I really want to thank my members as well. I appreciate the support itself, and of course if you aren't subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe. We're almost at 15,000. Of course, hitting 15,000 before the end of the year is the target. Anyway, have a good one, and talk to you guys in the next.